We can go to Salisbury now, where our correspondent Sarah Corker is. And Sarah, of course, developments happening all the time. What's the latest that's been happening?
Well, yes, as you say, it was yesterday when the military swept into Salisbury. Some soldiers specially trained in chemical warfare. We saw those images of some of them in protective suits and gas masks, all showing how serious this situation is. We saw vehicles and objects being moved by the army yesterday. And today we're expecting the focus could be on ambulances at the hospital.
A 32-year-old man arrested on Sunday on suspicion of kidnap has been re-arrested on suspicion of murder. Our correspondent Sarah Corker is in Caverswell. Sarah.
Yes, police closed off this quiet country lane about 10 miles from Stoke-on-Trent early this morning. Specially trained officers had been searching farmland as they looked for Samantha Eastwood. And then this afternoon came the sad news that a body had been found. Forensic teams are now at the scene.
Let's go live now to the scene. Our reporter Sarah Corker is there. Sarah.
Yes, this is the overwhelming community response. This is actually a car park outside one of the evacuation centres, and 24 hours since that fire began, these are all the donations, piles and piles of them. Cars have been queuing through the night to deliver these goods. We can just see here there's a pile of pushchairs delivered. We've got some toys here, some teddy bears for children as well.
5 of those killed were from Argentina. So let's bring you the very latest now from Sarah Corker.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Okay, I need an ambulance right here.
Frantic scenes in New York City. A school bus partly crushed with children still trapped inside. Eyewitnesses said it was rammed by a truck driving at speed.
Horror.
Moments earlier, on this bike path in Lower Manhattan, cyclists and pedestrians were mowed down. Bodies and bikes strewn along the street. This city, again the target of terror, a vehicle used as a weapon to kill. And this dramatic footage shows what happened next. The driver emerges from his truck, brandishing what turned out to be 2 fake guns.
Oh my God!
He's then shot by police and arrested.
And he was screaming in the street. He looked frustrated, panicked, confused.
I seen a couple of bodies laying right there in the bike path, and when I was looking, seeing if there's anybody else, I heard gunshots, and there was about 9 or 10 gunshots going off, and I seen cops ducking down.
The smell was, very strong of gunshots. There was one man laying on the ground. It looked like he had been shot.
Officer, clear him out. Let's go.
The attack happened close to a school and just yards from the 9/11 memorial. And on the police scanner, the panic of the moment.
Central, be advised, we have multiple people on the ground from Chambers all the way up to Houston.
This huge counter-terrorism operation is now underway, and it is very much an evolving situation. We haven't heard that much from the police at the moment, other than confirming that they are treating this as a terrorist incident and confirming that 19 people have died. We have heard, though, from the British Transport Police in the last hour or so. They've said that there will be extra officers on trains and stations today. There was some kind of argument between 2 groups of people, and that's when one man aimed this substance at 2 others. We know that 12 people were injured in this incident. 2 men, both in their 20s, are in hospital and they're in a serious but stable condition. 10 other people were treated for minor burns. Now, witnesses have described a really chaotic scene here in the early hours of the morning. Hundreds of people were evacuated from the club.
Well, our correspondent Sarah Corker is in Sunderland, and Sarah, you've also been with the fans today.
Yes, it's incredibly busy, it's been incredibly noisy, and fans here still can't quite believe what they've seen. When the final whistle went, this crowd, it just went crazy. They erupted, beer was spraying everywhere, we saw a sea of flailing arms and legs, sheer joy. I've got some fans with me now who can't quite believe it either. Just tell me, when that final whistle went, what went through your head?
It was just unbelievable, it was just great to get through. I predicted Belgium-England final from the beginning, and it's looking that way.
The Danish energy firm Ørsted says its Race Bank wind farm is the 5th biggest in the world and could power around 500,000 homes across the UK. Sarah Corker has been taking a look.
The commute to work might be a bit rocky, but the views are spectacular.
We see seals and wildlife and sunsets. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I'm assuming there's no lift.
Yes, there is. But
There's a lift?
Yes, it's more for parts than it is people.
Georgia is a wind turbine technician, and for 2 weeks at a time, this huge ship is her home in the middle of the North Sea. How comfy are the cabins then?
Very comfy.
It's nicknamed the Flotel, and the rooms here are en suite.
We've all got our own tellies as well.
This 60-cabin vessel has 5 decks and was designed by Rolls-Royce specifically for servicing wind farms.
Get the music on and get everyone in the mood.
With a gym, games room and steak night Fridays, it's a taste of home at sea.
I worked in a shop for a year and realised that wasn't for me.
So Georgia trained as an apprentice at Lincoln College.
We do have to climb the turbines, and that's very high and very tiring. It's maintenance work, fault finding, it's electrical, hydraulic, mechanical.
Do you get homesick?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I think everyone does.
And this is what Georgia will be working on. Race Bank, 17 miles offshore, officially opened today by Danish firm Ørsted. I went for a flyover with the managing director. From the air, you get a real sense of the scale of this wind farm. It's the 5th largest in the world and is equivalent in size to 10,500 football pitches. The number of jobs at Ørsted's Grimsby base is estimated to eventually double to 500.
It is central on the east coast. It has the deep water harbour facilities that we need. It's ideally located from a geographical standpoint, and we're delighted that we can create so many jobs in this local area because of that.
Race Bank will generate enough electricity for 500,000 homes, and crews from Grimsby already maintain 2 other North Sea wind farms, and 2 more are being built further offshore. Hornsea 1 will become the world's largest. The scandal first broke back in September 2015 when US regulators confronted VW about the results of its testing and the emissions of its diesel vehicles. The guilty plea is part of a $4.3 billion settlement with US authorities to pay civil and criminal fines. VW admitted to installing illegal software in 500,000 vehicles. This is BBC World News. I'm Sarah Corker. The headlines. The polls have opened in South Korea's presidential election. The frontrunner, Moon Jae-in, has criticised the perceived privilege of South Korea's elite. The top stories this hour. France has a new president. The pro-European centrist Emmanuel Macron, who's just 39, was voted in with a projected 66% of the vote.
Some are warning that the price of new cars could rise by more than £1,000 if no deal is struck on import and export duties. Others, though, argue it will be business as usual. As Sarah Corker reports.
It's 7 in the evening at the port of Immingham, and the Jutlandia is coming into dock carrying hundreds of brand new cars from Europe. Grimsby and Immingham are 2 of the UK's busiest car ports, handling 500,000 vehicles every year. 85% of vehicles in the UK are imported, and every day thousands arrive from the EU without customs checks or tariffs, and the car industry is bracing itself for a bumpy Brexit. And just a few miles from the port is Kia's huge British import base.
The vehicle starts its life in Slovakia, so basically from factory all the way to the customer is roughly about 20 days.
And I guess it doesn't take much to disrupt that.
It doesn't. It could be part supply. We have to plan ahead. You can't do this sort of operation overnight.
And so to really understand what impact Brexit could have, we have to go 1,200 miles east to the beginning of the supply chain. This is Kia's factory in Slovakia. The dance and rhythm of robots helped to build an entire car in a matter of hours. The vehicles are then moved across Europe by truck and train. could Brexit derail this smooth operation? The freight train weaves its way from Slovakia through Poland and onwards to Western Germany. That's where we pick up the trail. Kia's trade route across Europe has taken more than a decade to perfect and refine. This is Cuxhaven, a gateway to northern England. This is a relaxed seaside town at the maritime crossroads between the North and Baltic Seas. The main industries are tourism, fishing and freight, especially cars. Now this car is just a couple of days old. It's arrived from Slovakia this morning. Hello. We're going to track its journey to the UK. And I'm also here to meet the teams that keep these cars moving across borders.
In terms of the car business, we have more than 50% of the entire volume is related to the UK.
Wow, so Brexit is a bit of a headache.
Absolutely. This will definitely change something in Cuxhaven, but nobody knows exactly what.
You might just be able to see some cars here next to me, the water just lapping at the wheels there. And there are a lot of emergency services here. We've got the police, we've got lifeboat crews, we've got mountain rescue. And this is why. This is Warwick Road, a major route in and out of the city. And at the moment, rescues are still going on. People are being brought to safety from their homes, which are under 3 or 4 feet of water. We've seen some pretty dramatic scenes here. What's different about this cafe is all of the meals are using food that would otherwise have been chucked away close to or past its best before date. So let's have a look at what we've got here. We've got some bread that's best before the 1st of Feb, some cereal bars there dated for the end of January.
Many of our coastal towns suffer high levels of deprivation, debt, bankruptcy, even rates of suicide are higher. So what more should be done to improve the economic prospects of those living on the coast? Sarah Corker has been finding out.
Scape Vegas, as it's known affectionately by the locals, comes to life when the sun's shining. Every year, 4 million tourists visit this part of the East Coast. But away from the roller coasters and bright lights, the reality of everyday life here can be quite different.
It's only me bringing in an income and I find it hard to pay off debts. During the summer, I could be getting up to like £500 a fortnight. During the winter, 250, 300.
So your wage can halve in the winter because it's quieter?
Yeah.
Seaside Resorts are seeing a rising tide of debt. Nathan works as a barman, but after a housing dispute, he's now got money problems.
At the moment, I'm in like a lot of money's worth of debt, like nearly 30 grand's worth of debt, and it's having a really big impact on my life. Because by the time everything's paid out, it leaves me with nothing. And I'm trying to go bankrupt as well to help me.
Our seaside towns have always had their ups and downs, but research shows that coastal communities are lagging behind the rest of the country when it comes to earnings, employment and health. Here in Skegness, there are some of the highest bankruptcy rates in the country. Antidepressant use is rising and life expectancy for women here is below the national average. Across town is the Storehouse Church and Cafe, where there's free debt advice. Unstable work and low pay are recurring themes.
There can be in floods of tears, thinking of suicide, you know, when you get to the bottom of the problems and thinking of suicide, not being able to feed the children, they get to a stage where they just can't cope anymore and they don't know any other way out. You know, that's why we're here, to offer them that help.
How many of the people you've tried to help have taken their own lives?
I know of 2 people, which is massive, even one's too many.
Some here feel the government overlooks places like this, literally on the edge of Britain, instead preoccupied with big city problems.